Hi, I'm DLils from Pro Football Forensics, and the NFL sports betting season is upon us. We're finally here. While sports betting brings new excitement and to your football viewing experience, in many areas it's brand new, right? It's not available in all 50 states yet, and it's rapidly expanding its digital and physical footprint across the U.S. Similar to crypto when it was first introduced, there is a learning curve, and Pro Football Forensics is here to help educate both new bettors, both seasoned bettors, and what I would consider blind bettors as well, people who rely solely on a bookie. So, the purpose of this Spread State 101 episode today is to give some general rules of betting, right? Rules that will keep you from getting into deep over your head, rules that will keep you on a consistent base and streamline your focus on achieving your sports betting goals, specifically for the NFL season. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number one, the first thing that you guys want to do is build a strategy, right? How much is your goal? Is this a substitute for playing the lottery? Is this a vice of yours that you just like doing on the side, or is this something that you're legitimately trying to create some type of additional revenue stream or some type of additional income? How much do you want to make per week? How much do you want to make per month? What's the annual goal, right? And so after you solidify each of these goals, then you can kind of construct, how am I going to obtain these goals? What do I need to make each week in order to hit my measurables, and so on? A lot of the quote unquote handicappers out here nowadays, when they do the per unit sales or per games, if you subscribe for a particular length throughout a season or for all sports, what they're not doing is they're not really preparing you to sustain a long-term goal financially. What they're doing is just you're paying them for picks. Some picks might be right, some picks might be wrong, and you're just hoping for the best outcome. Whereas here at Pro Football Forensics, what we do is educate the bettors, and we provide a financial structured plan on how to obtain your financial goals, specifically within the NFL sports betting season over the next 21 weeks. And a lot of the things that I'm telling you all, I tell my clients, feel free to subscribe through Patreon, patreon.com/profootballforensics, and you can subscribe to our Spread State University right now, where I go over not only some of these sports betting 101 general tips, but I build a financial plan and I base my consulting over your own personal goals. So, after you've established your per week, your per month, your per year goal, the next thing that you're going to have to do is, how quickly can you realistically obtain those goals, right? The NFL season is a 21-week season. Let's say you want 8K over the span of a season. How does that break over 21 weeks? And after 21 weeks, or during those weeks, when you go through the peaks and valleys of the sports betting season, how are you able to bounce back? How are you able to adjust? How are you able to pivot? And all of that is vital. The next thing that I want to address is how to not get over your head. Each week, what we do here at Pro Football Forensics, we've established something called a fault line. So a fault line is the very bottom that you're willing to lose, right? A lot of times I tell my clients this particular quote. I say, if I lose this entire blank, I will be okay. And you fill in that blank with the amount that you're comfortable with losing, whether that be $50, whether that's 100, whether that's 1,000. That range is going to be different depending on the type of bettor. And so the first thing that you have to come to grips is, how much am I okay with losing? And if once you have that number, then we can move forward. You have to go into the day or a particular game, depending on how you organize your betting, with a cap loss in mind. If you're only going to bet on one game, you're going to say, okay, I'm willing to lose $50. You have to set a cap. A lot of times what people do is they just want to spend. Betting is fun. It's an exhilarating process. It's excitement, right? As it enhances your NFL experience. And so what people will do is just bet on a lot of different games, not really having a strategy in mind, not really tracking their bets. And often what will happen is they'll get over their head very quickly. They'll lose track of what their goals were, just to bet because it's a fun experience. That's not something that I teach my clients. Set boundaries. So, you know, what I mean by setting boundaries. If you lose, you can't win it back, right? Live to see another day. That's a mantra that I live by in terms of sports betting education and sports consulting. Live to see another day. If you came into a particular game with the mindset that you're willing to lose $20, then don't go chasing that game. If you've lost 20, don't pull out another 5 to 10 from the ATM and go in to chase another result. Live with the result from your predefined strategy. Don't ride a team just to ride a team. I see this often, right? You'll see Kansas City Chiefs, they'll go on a 5-game win streak. You'll see the Bucks. You'll see these teams that have elite quarterbacks, and they'll go on streaks throughout the season, right? That's how they make the playoffs. What you don't want to do is ride a team just because they're on a quote-unquote winning streak. You want to make sure and you want to ensure that the data supports that winning streak, because it will be the one day that you decide to ride that winning streak, and you'll get completely you'll get completely bamboozled if you don't follow the data. Stay away from your team. Another thing that I see a lot, right? I live in the DMV, closer to the Baltimore Ravens as opposed to the Washington football team. And one thing that I see often is bettors love to bet on their team. My number one rule of thumb: stay away from your team. Don't be a fan. Don't eat where you poop at. I can't really break it down any better than that. What I see often is, especially from Cowboys fans, you see a lot from Steelers fans as well. Obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders. Teams will just hammer their home team just because of the fact it's their home team, right? That's not the correct approach. And if you're going to bet in terms of increments of, $100 on particular games, especially if they're money line games, you're going to get over your head very quickly if you're just going to bet on your team, right? And that goes for anybody, right? Even the best teams in the league lose. And if you go into a particular weekend with just the mindset that I'm going to bet on my team, you're not going to have much success in the NFL. Don't chase a number. Now, a lot of times what I'll hear from clients is, hey, on this particular Sunday, I want to try to win $500 from this bet. You can't chase the number, right? After you've established your financial structure, right, your strategy for the whole entire year, you have to stick to that strategy. So if there's a particular weekend and I give advice, or our pro football forensics team comes up with a strategy on these are the 3 or 4 games that are almost guaranteed locks that you should pretty much focus your betting pool on, then you stick to that. What you don't do is you don't chase a number. You chase the play. You always chase the play. If there's 3 good plays, then you stick with those 3 plays. You don't increase your plays in order to increase your odds on a particular parlay so that you can gain more money, obviously, at the end of the day. You always want to chase the play, never chase a number. Another thing, this is huge, right? So many times I've gone into Sunday having all the data figured out, right? I know every possible scenario, solution, combination of factors that go into any given result, and what happens? I look outside and it's raining, or I turn on the news and it's snowing in Green Bay or Buffalo, or it's raining and there are winds gusting up to 18 miles per hour in Chicago. I cannot place enough emphasis and importance on the fact you must check weather prior to placing your wager. It's the number one killer out here. If you know the weather not only changes the outcome of the game, but it changes the way the game is played. For a perfect example, right? There was inclement weather last year. I believe the Ravens played in New England. It was Cam Newton versus Lamar Jackson game. Lamar was driving down within the last 2 minutes, and receivers were fumbling a lot of the passes out of bounds, real slick out of their routes. And actually, you can go to my Instagram page. It's one of my first 3 posts. Actually, I lost a huge parlay on this at Pro Football Forensics on Instagram. And so what I found and discovered that weather has such a key influence on a particular game as far as the outcome, But if you know how that game is going to be impacted by the weather, it's usually a given on the over and under. Um, you'll see that teams will have a more approached running game. But if you don't have the unit, if you don't have the men that can propel your running attack, or if you're not a run oriented team or a run scheme team, then you're not going to have successful in those inclement weather games. And where you may have been a pick 'em or maybe a 2 point favorite in one of these matchups, now that would drastically change to potentially being an underdog or even a large even a large point underdog at that, if your team cannot adjust to the weather. And so that's why I tell people it's crucial, it's uber crucial to check weather and injuries as well before games, right? Injuries is another big one. Perfect example. If Aaron Rodgers goes out, the Green Bay Packers are going to dramatically change their offense to more fit Jordan Love's skill set. So what does that mean? That means they may go from the more West Coast or spread offense to RPO, run pass option, right? Jordan Love is a tad bit faster than Aaron Rodgers, moves a little bit quicker. And so to simplify things, that could change the entire game plan. Obviously, the starting quarterback is going to carry 2 or 3 points on the spread. But even if it's a backup running back, right? Maybe you have a second string running back that's more capable of fumbling, and so they want to do running back by committee. Well, that's going to impact your prop betting. That's going to impact your betting on platforms like FanDuel and DraftKings. And it's going to obviously impact your entire wager in terms of the money line and the over-under as well. So always check injuries, always check weather. Now, let's shift a little bit to NFL betting itself, right? Those are some more just generic tips about any sport that's played outside. Right now, is weather going to impact basketball? No. So a lot of these are tailored specifically to pro football betting, but they're just general rules, best practices, so to speak. So a couple things for the NFL to keep in mind. I'm not going to get too saturated in the statistics here. This is more so just general rule of thumb, best practices for NFL specific rules. One, don't bet against Brady. I've said that before. I'll say it again until Brady leaves the NFL. You do not bet against Tom Brady in any form or fashion. Now, does that mean Brady's going to go undefeated against the spread week in, week out? No, absolutely not. But if you're in a spot, if you're looking to add the Buccaneers in this instance to a parlay, if you're looking to, if you're looking to bet straight out, make sure the numbers match, right? Obviously, but if you are a little uncertain, you can pass on the game altogether. I'd rather be uncertain and not bet on Brady than think I'm certain and lose against betting on Brady. Or I'm sorry, losing on my bet against Brady as I'm trying to fade Brady and do the other team and bet on the other team. You don't want to do that. If you're not sure, take the game off the card. That's my best rule of thumb in terms of betting on Brady. Another thing, stay away from that Thursday night football favorite. I'll get into another show on patreon.com/Pro Football Forensics. We'll be doing a Thursday night pre-show, and I'll be talking about really how to break down Thursday night football betting. What you don't want to do is bet on the favorite on Thursday night football. So many times and so often that we see that Thursday night is a crapshoot. A lot of reverses hit on Thursday night football. A lot of underdogs end up covering. And there tends to be a lot of blowouts. And that's for a lot of reasons that I'm going to get to on my Thursday Night Football show. But for now, stay away from Thursday Night Football favorites. You really don't want to start your parlays off with Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football is for straight bets. Keep in mind, right? You need to know player statistics. Everyone is not built for prime time. Prime time is considered Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins is 6-10 during prime time. So if you have a spot where you have the Vikings, especially on the road during a Monday night or a Sunday night marquee, NBC matchup, you may want to fade the Vikings. And knowing which quarterbacks are strong or weak in certain spots is very critical in having success throughout the NFL season. Look no further. Pro Football Forensics are going to provide this data to you and so much more data. If you download the app and you navigate to the Trends and Analysis tab, you'll find out information just like this regarding this Kirk Cousins stat. Double-digit spreads, right? Sometimes you entertain double-digit spreads. Sometimes you stay away from them. Most often, general rule of thumb, you avoid double-digit spreads. This is the NFL. These are grown men. They're playing for a salary. They're playing for money to feed their families. This is not college football. Despite the new NIL agreement that the NCAA came to grips with, people are not blowing other teams out on a consistent basis when they're favored as a double digit. Now, you'll see a lot of 14-point, 20-point blowouts. Blowouts do happen in the NFL season. However, when those blowouts happen, they typically are not a favored blowout, right? The spread does not point to it being a blowout. It usually happens as a result of one or two factors. So when you see double-digit spreads, I always side on fading the favorite and going with the underdog on double digits. Even if it seems kind of outrageous, hardly ever are you going to see over 13, 14 points covered. You're just not going to see it that often. And as a general rule of thumb, if you're a little bit unsure, take the game off your card, right? Skip that game and move on to the next one. 5.5 points. I see this a lot as well. What does 5.5 points really mean? Well, 5.5 points is a dead number. Whenever you see the 5.5 points, it should be a key indication that the lines maker, the odds maker, the sports book is really clueless about this particular game. The reason why I say this, statistically, 3 times over 2 years, has a 5.5 point spread resulted in exactly 5 or 6 points. Okay, 3 times over 2 years, guys, it doesn't happen. Very similar with a pick'em game, right? Don't believe in pick'ems. A game should never be a pick'em. Over the past 2 years, games that were given a pick'em spread did not yield a 1 point differential one time. One game happened, okay? 1 point games happened 9 times out of 255 matchups going back to 2019. I'll repeat that. When teams were given a pick'em spread, when a matchup was assigned a pick'em spread, meaning it's a win-loss, it's a half point. You can't win by a half point, so that means whatever team wins, they cover. When you see this pick'em spread, over the past 2 years, when a team has been assigned a pick'em game, a half point, only 9 times did that game result in a 1 point outcome. Okay, that's out of 255 matchups. It doesn't happen. That's not to say it won't happen. The statistics show that it hardly ever happens over the span of a season. Okay, you may see one matchup per week that you actually receive a 1 point game. So again, stay away from that. Statistically, it doesn't happen. Theoretically, it's kind of difficult to happen. Games are not set up to be a 1 point game, right? 1 point games happen as a result of missed kicks and missed extra points. And the NFL has done a lot of things and put a lot of rules and emphasis in place so that 1 point games are not the outcome, right? The average outcome is 3 to 4 points, and then after that, it's 6 to 7 points. 1 point differentials hardly ever happen. And that's pretty much it for our Spread State University NFL Sports Betting 101. Tune in on Thursday to patreon.com/ProFootballForensics. Tune in on Friday as we're going to be debuting the Sharps and Minnows episode. And tune in on Saturday to get a full 16-game breakdown and analysis of every game, what the score is going to be for those games, so that you know what to look for this upcoming weekend. This is DLils, only here at Spread State University, Pro Football Forensics.